It's September the 12th, 1998. We're in Houston, Texas at the Sheridan. My name's Slade McClendon, and I'll be interviewing Frank Peterson, Jr. Of the 56th Armored Infantry Battalion headquarters. If you can just start, Mr. Peterson, by tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your family and
Oh.
kind of.
Well, I was born in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. The date, April 17, 1913. I'm 85 years old right at the present time. And I went to grade school, and then of course I went to high school, and I graduated from high school in 1931. And then I went to work for G.C. Murphy Company in their warehouse, and I eventually ended up as inventory supervisor. I had to correct the computers as far as the merchandise is concerned. Sometimes a computer would say we're out of merchandise, and you could have 300 dozen of an item there laying in the bin. But if the computer says you're out, you're out. So then I'd have to get down and count it and send it down to the home office so they could put it back in the computer. And that was my industrial life. So I finally retired from Murphy 20 years ago. So that would have been, I think, 78 when I retired. And I've been living a happy life ever since. And then my wife passed away in April 1997, and she was 82 years of age. So I don't know. I'm just at loose ends right now.
Well, so you worked after graduating from high school, you said?
Oh yeah.
And then when did you enlist before the war?
No, I was drafted twice. In June of 1940. No, 1941. I was drafted, sent down to Camp Lee, Virginia. From Camp Lee, they sent me out to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I trained in wire communication of field artillery. And after I put in my basic training, what happened? They said, "You're too old for the Army, go on home." I was 28 years of age. So I went home for 2 months. So then Pearl Harbor came along. So I got another notice from the government, greetings, and it said, "You will report to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania." And from Indiantown Gap, they sent me down to Fort Meade, Maryland, and did a little more processing, and then sent me down to the garden spot of the world for a soldier. down to Washington, D.C. I was down in the Anacostia Flats, and I was with the 176 Infantry Blues. So I was with them until 44. I shipped over. They broke up the regiment, and we went overseas. I spent 3 months in England. They wanted to make me a line sergeant, and I said no. I said I know wire communication, and I know a little bit about radio. I was a slow speed operator in Morse code, and so they sent me down to Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. sent me back to Fort Meade, Maryland to take a test in radio. So I passed the test, and they sent me down to Fort Benning, Georgia. So I was down there 3 months going to radio school, and I finally passed that as a slow speed operator. And I went back to the outfit, to the 176, and then we moved from Anacostia Flats to Fort Myer, Virginia. Fort Myer, we went down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and the line companies were training officers in combat, and the outfit I was with the headquarters company, and I had to take a group of radio operators and wiremen out into the field and meet the officers who were in training for communication officer. So I enjoyed that. I just gathered up the men and say, come on, we're going, and you have X number of radios in the truck, and you have so many telephones. That's what I want at the end of the day. So end of the day, they sent it in. I mean, they got the merchandise, and we went back to Fort Benning, and so we got back in time to make what they call retreat. But in the morning, if I was in charge of quarters, in the morning I have to go out and report the company present or accounted for, because the officers lived off the post. And I'd turn around, there wouldn't be a soul behind me. But I'd report headquarters company present or accounted for. I guess if anyone checked on me, I'd probably be court-martialed. But then they broke up the regiment, and I ended up in Camp Shanks, and the war in Europe, the invasion in Europe had started, and so then I went over to England, and in England they processed me and sent me over to France as a replacement. So that's how I ended up with the 12th Armored. Anything else?
Yeah, you bet. So, what did you think when you got to the 12th Armored Division?
Well, first I reported to Captain Maddox, and he was about half drunk. He says, do you know how to read a compass? I said, yes, sir. Well, I did at the time. And he says, all right, report down here to the first sergeant. So I went down there. He was more drunk than the captain. And I thought to myself, what kind of an outfit am I getting into? And he said, go out, there's a half track out there with a radio in it. Get acquainted with it. But you know, I never used the radio the whole time I was with the 12th. And I was only with them a very short time. And finally, we went in, they got orders to go into a village called Hurleysheim in the Alsace-Lorraine area. So, went in there, and some jackass of a lieutenant colonel brought 5 tanks up, parked them outside the building I was in. Of course, that drew a lot of shells. So, one shell came down and just took the whole side of the building out. And the plaster from the room came down, not, you know, sprinkled down. And I was trying to crawl under the bed. But those beds are built right down on the floor. So I couldn't go under there, but I reached around and I felt my buttocks, and I didn't see any blood, so I said, well, I'm all right. So I tried to help the lieutenant colonel. I had 2 first aid packs. I put all the sulfur on his head, but I couldn't tie the bandage. Every time I wanted to tie the bandage, it slipped. So a medic came in, and I said, take care of this man. So I gathered up all the maps that were on the table, took them across the courtyard to A Company, and I said, here's all the maps that the lieutenant colonel left on the table with his 5 tanks out there. So I turned around and I was heading out, and the captain says, where are you going, soldier? I says, I'm going out to try to find the captain of headquarters company to see what he wants me to do. So I got to the doorway. Another shell came down, and that's when I got hit. So then I went to the building that I was originally in, and there was, I'd say 5 or 10 wounded people in there. So I ended up on top of a big bin of potatoes. And I just laid there, relaxed, until they came around in the evening and they said, well, we're taking you out. Well, I was the last one to come out of that house. And I said, sir, if you're going to leave me here, give me a rifle and some grenades. He says, soldier, we're not leaving. He took me out and put me down in a tank, and that's the first time I was ever in a tank. Put me right down alongside the driver, and I said, how in the hell do you know where you're going? He says, well, the little slit there, look out there, and it just opened up into a panorama. And it got me back to the aid station. The medic back there says, would you like a drink? I said, I sure would. So he gave me a shot of whiskey. And I polished that off, and I said, would you mind filling that again? He said, be glad to. And it was real tasty whiskey, the first that I've had since leaving the States, I think. So I went down to the hospital. They put me on a hospital train, went down to the hospital, and I was there 2 months. I had, there's the scar that I had on my arm, and there was a big pus sac right down here. And they said, oh, when you get back to your outfit, why, after I left the hospital, when you get back to your outfit, why, go on sick call and they'll take care of it, which they did. They slit it, put in a pair of scissors that opened this way, and they drained all that pus out of there, put a couple Band-Aids on it, and that's it. And then the division had blacked out. They became the mystery division to help Patton. Where they went, I don't know. Because 7th Army sent a notice down to the 12th saying they needed some men to go back home. A 50-day furlough. Well, when division headquarters heard that, they wanted me to raffle it off, and I says, no way, I'm going home. So I went down to Marseille, got all the shots required, went over to Africa, but they wouldn't let me off the boat. There was 500 Germans down in the hold, and went out through Gibraltar, and as soon as we got through Gibraltar, the captain of the boat run up 3 blackballs, which means he had motor trouble. And because I inquired about it, and the man told me, he says, well, we have a little bit of motor trouble, but not much. But as soon as that convoy gets out of sight, he'll bring those blackballs down and we'll take off. And we did. We beat the convoy into Norfolk by about 2-3 days. And from there, I took my 50-day furlough and went home. And when I was home, the war in Europe ended. So I told my girlfriend, I said, Olga, we're gonna get married. So we got married a month after my birthday in '45. And I was married to her for 51 years before she passed away. So that's my Army life. And I didn't think it was worthwhile coming down and being interviewed.
Oh shoot! You bet it is. You bet it is.
What'd you say?
When you said you got hit,
yeah.
Could you tell me a little more about that?
Oh, well, I was going out the door into the area there, and the shell came down, and I lost my carbine, and where it went, I have no idea. And just felt like a hot iron going through here. And that's how I got my scar on the arm. I have a small one on the side here. And it was enough to give me the Purple Heart.
Did you hear that shell?
What?
Did you hear that shell?
No.
That's what they all say.
No.
Whenever they get hit by one, they say they didn't hear it.
I never heard it.
Have you talked to other guys about that?
No.
Now, when you brought these guys the map,
What?
When you brought those guys the maps?
Oh, yeah. That was A Company of the 56th Armored. And whatever they did with it, I don't know.
Did you have any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay.